And hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hearthstone America's Championship. We're live here from the Folsom Foundry in San Francisco, California, where we have an incredible crowd who's hyped to see who will be crowned the America's Champions. We're about to move into the semifinal matches. I'm joined by Reynad and Kipler. And Reynad, somebody today is about to become legendary.
I'm excited to see who it is. Top 4 remaining players, all fantastic players, have had a great run to get to this point. Let's see who's the champion.
All right, well, let's see our semifinal bracket before we jump into the match to see the 4 players that are remaining. Brian Kibler wanted to go over that.
We have Nias, Purple, Jab, and Hot Form. That'll be the matchups as well. Nias and Jab came through as the first seeds from their groups, and Purple and Hot Form managed to battle back today to make their way into the semifinals.
Yeah, and it looks like our first semifinalist is ready to come out onto the stage.
Nias, representing USA!
Nice. Rocking the shades.
These guys have been having a lot of fun all weekend.
USA chants coming out from the crowd here.
And this is going to be a USA versus Canada battle, I believe, in both matchups.
Yeah, in both matchups. Yeah, that is very true. So we definitely have a battle of the North American nations happening. And Nice, again, once coming out as that first seed from Group B yesterday.
He has come so far from the last call tournament. He had the bare minimum number of points to just squeak into that qualifier, and here he is in the semifinals.
First seed even. I mean, he really was the underdog going into it. It's awesome to see him go so far.
Yeah, and it looks like our next semifinalist is ready.
Purple, representing Canada!
Yeah, Purple is a player that, last year's world champion Firebat said that Purple was instrumental in his victory. So he thinks that it's his turn.
He's clearly a man of the people here, trying not to miss a single high five as he goes through the crowd.
It's quite the minigame.
Yeah. Also could be that it's kind of tough to see out of spots.
I have tried them on, and that's true. It is not easy to see.
But they do look good.
Oh, yeah.
Those players. Purple making his way up. He is the second seed coming out of Group A, so he had a little bit of a tougher road. He did have to play some matches earlier in the day, but I'm sure he's ready and warmed up to play some Hearthstone.
I mean, well, nice to get to have a rest and chill out. Purple did get his warm-up games in today. He had a very dominating performance in his decider match to get here.
Nias versus Purple!
All right.
Looks like the players are about to start their handshake. There it is. Some good lucks come out from both sides. The players will take their positions, and we are about to get started with the semifinals here at the America's Championship.
Yeah, these guys both have really strong lineups. It's hard to give either player the edge. I feel like that Warrior is going to perform kind of tough depending on which matchup you get it against. If Purple manages to line that up with something like Tempo Mage, he's going to have a huge edge, get that free win on board. If that gets paired into Warlock, it's going to be a much harder time, though.
And Nias with the very interesting build of the Warlock deck. He actually plays the Refreshment Vendors rather than Twilight Drakes that we've seen. Very powerful against more aggressive strategies. Not necessarily what he's looking for in that Patron matchup, though.
Yeah.
Well, he did have an interesting strategy yesterday going into the Handlock Mirror. Reynad, you said that he played that really well. He played it solidly, and the Refreshment Vendor sort of played a part in that.
Yeah, well, the Refreshment Vendor is just like a dude, which is fine. That's what you want it to be in a control matchup, is just have some stats. The healing didn't come into play too much. But yeah, he played it in a really cool, fatigue-oriented way. Yeah, starting off with Hunter versus Drew in a matchup we've seen a couple times this weekend, and it's decent hand from Nias. That Eagle Horn Bow is going to be very important just in case Purple does end up having her Darnassus Aspirant. You need to have the answer. Even without Darnassus Aspirant, though, that helps you clear a piloted Shredder. That's the route you want to go.
And there is that Darnassus Aspirant in Purple's hand after the mulligan, along with an Innervate.
Oh,
so
he doesn't keep the bow.
He decides to leave the bow.
Game 1.
Wow, so Purple already emoting sorry.
Yeah, Purple's draw is absurd.
This is incredibly powerful. The turn 1 Shade of Nextramas along with Darnassus Aspirant, which will ramp him into Keeper of the Grove. And we did see Nias mulligan away that bow and does not have a great answer to a Darnassus Aspirant right away.
Nias' hand isn't too shabby either, though. He's got all the 2 drops in the world, which is fine. Those Haunted Creepers aren't exactly minions that Purple's going to want to be killing off. So because of that, the Houndmaster is very likely to get value this game.
Yeah. Haunted Creeper is not a card that you go into, wanting to remove right away unless you're specifically playing around a card like Houndmaster.
And now this dynamic here, Purple assumes that the trap that came off of that Mad Scientist is Freezing Trap, which allows him to attack his Darnassus Aspirant into it. And because Darnassus Aspirant's forcing you to lose a mana crystal is a death rattle effect, it doesn't trigger. So he effectively just gets a wild growth from that 2/3 body.
And gets to get rid of the trap. It's very
it's
effective.
huge.
So Nias is going to hope that that's one of the other traps in his deck if he does play non-freezing traps.
Yeah, the one weakness of a hand like this is that it doesn't have longevity. Like, once you play your hand, you need something like an Ancient of Lore to refill it because you can run out of steam really quickly.
But this is a matchup that's much more about the early board presence and tempo than it is about playing an attrition style of game. Ancient of Lore is clearly still powerful if you do get to that point in the game, but right now Purple's looking to apply a lot of pressure here and eventually try to end the game relatively quickly.
There we go, Azure Drake. And that's just the way these Druid decks are built. You get your few cheap interactive cards, and at some point you're going to see something like Azure Drake, something like Ancient of Lore, just more expensive, high-value minions.
Yeah, so over the course of the week, we've seen that Nias actually chooses to run double Hunter's Mark in his mid-range Hunter. Kibler, how is that going to affect this matchup in particular?
This is a matchup where the Hunter's Mark is relatively powerful. It does allow you to take out some of the larger minions like Ancients or things like Druid of the Claw. Not super effective against the sort of aggressive draw that Purple does have right here, though.
Purple seems to be very aware of what traps Nias does have in his deck.
Yeah, and there he even used the Keeper of the Grove to kill the Mad Scientist to ensure that there was a freezing trap for him to attack into to bounce back that Aspirant to his hand.
Must be Snake Trap remaining. Purple's aware of that. He's not playing in a way that suggests he expects it to be Explosive Trap at all. But he has drawn the second Wild Growth. His opening hand was amazing, but these 2 Wild Growths are definitely bricks at the moment.
He did pick up an Ancient of Lore, which will give him a bit more resources he will have to work with once he's able to get that down. But he's already just pretty far ahead on the board.
Yeah, look, nice to have 14 health.
Yeah. Although the fact that he has the Houndmaster here to buff one of his creepers is pretty big for a number of reasons. One, it just gives him the ability to defend himself, but perhaps more importantly, it forces the opponent to attack into his minion rather than his face, which not only defends him, but triggers the Snake Trap and will give him an additional charge of that Eaglehorn bow.
At this point, Nias is considering attacking with his other Haunted Creeper just to break it. He recognized that he's behind, isn't sure if it's worth not trading it off to play on swipe.
Oh dear! And you see a grin on Purple's face there. That's huge, because exactly what we were just talking about. Oh, it forces him to attack into the minion. No, it does not. Not anymore.
All right, Raynad. So the Black Knight is a card that only Purple has run across the North American Qualifier Tournament as well as the America's Championship. What are your thoughts on that card?
If you draw it at times like this, that is very strong. I mean, yeah, this is a card we saw a lot in competitive play about a year ago back in 2014 when we saw more taunt minions, a lot more cards like Sludge Belcher being played. But nowadays, it's been out of the loop for so long that nobody's ever going to play around it. Even knowing it's in Purple's deck, it's a card that you recognize it's a legendary. He's only going to have one. Can I really play around it? Most of the time, the answer is no. So whenever Purple draws it, not only is it unexpected, not only is his opponent's deck not built in a way that takes that card into account, but they're also probably just not going to play around it. So definitely been very impactful for him every time I've seen him draw it so far here in the America's Championship.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where Snake Trap can sometimes be one of the weaker traps because you have to attack to a minion to go for it, and Purple had an aggressive start, and he hasn't had to attack in and proc that Snake Trap.
Even if he did have to, Druid's a deck that you can't just have the swipe, right? It's something like Freezing Trap is guaranteed to get value. At some point, your opponent has to attack with it. Snake Trap, not so much.
That Wrath's a very good draw here. It lets him kill the Houndmaster, which prevents Nias from having a board that can effectively contest this Ancient. Oh, and here, the Force of Nature pickup. So yeah, now Purple has the Force of Nature plus Savage Roar to just do a bunch of damage next turn. Emote, sorry.
Yeah, it should do it. That's not a low-theb coming out of Nias. I don't think there's a way to survive here.
Purple was a little more reserved earlier. We were talking about he didn't get any emotes in with his Lord Jaraxxus, but it seems like now he's here in the semifinals. He's happy to have a little bit more fun with it.
Yeah, all he needed was the Force of Nature or the Savage Roar or the swipe in that situation.
And he has both.
Yeah, and Purple is going to take game number 1 in the first semifinal of the day. Coming into this matchup with a victory.
Yeah, I mean, Druid's one of those decks. It's known for being able to get starts like that. Turn 1, Shayden Exramus. Turn 2, Darnassus Aspirant. Kill Mad Scientist. Bring the Aspirant back so you don't have to worry about the Death Rattle. Into Keeper of the Grove. Great curve. I mean, that's just Druid doing what it does.
Yeah, everything really just came together for Purple that game, and he took a decisive Game 1 victory.
Yeah, and Purple, has had a chance to speak with a lot of other players and make some friendships along the way. We actually had a chance to sit down with Purple early in the week to talk about just that.
Why do you think that Hearthstone players are, and I will say this, Hearthstone players on a whole are happier, friendlier people than a lot of the pro gamers that you encounter in stressful tournament situations?
Well, it's not your muscle reflex that is determining your skill in the game, which is pretty much every other game for the most part. And once you take that attribute out, you get more well-rounded people actually playing the game, people who use their brain. And that's not necessarily the case in other games.
Shots fired.
Yeah, at other games, not necessarily at other players. And Nias is a player who, he's pretty big. He's got some brawn. I believe that's what Rachel said, a champion of both brain and brawn.
I mean, he definitely used his brain to get here, too.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think he was bench pressing his opponents to get them to, get out of the way.
Nias actually just recently got his MBA, so he's a pretty smart dude
He's like a
himself.
financial trader, I believe.
Yeah,
so,
he is, yeah.
He looks like he'd be a football player, but he works in finance too. So, and we're into the next game here. So Purple with his Warlock deck against Nias with Hunter.
So Nias definitely cued into the matchup he wanted, exactly the matchup he wanted. This is what his Hunter deck is designed to be. Mid-range Hunter really is one of Handlock's hardest matchups. So a lot of stuff has to go right for Purple to win this game. The easiest route to victory is a Void Caller that happens to trade off early into something like Mal'Ganis. You really need to do like the most powerful thing you can with your Warlock deck. But that's not bad. He has his 2/4 drops that he can actually coin out, which is Twilight Drake and Void Caller, and that's going to let him get on board a lot faster than Handlock normally would.
Players with the emotes here, and Nias actually has a relatively weak hand. Both Unleash the Hounds and Snake Trap are not really cards you're looking for in this matchup. He does have a couple of good early plays, as well as the Highmane, which he does want to pick up the middle turns, but he's going to need to draw something to fill out his curve here.
Absolutely. There are so few cards that are weak in the Hunter deck in this matchup, but he does happen to have probably 2 of the 5 in his deck. Still some good pressure coming out, though, and Purple's finally going to get on board with his 4-drop on turn 3. No Demon for that yet.
But you can never really count on that if you're the opponent going up against Demon Handlock. You never know what is behind that Void Caller. And
Absolutely.
Sometimes, even with no demons, you can bait out a silence.
I mean, that's the beauty of Void Caller. It's a card that you kind of have to respect no matter what. It's not, even when you don't have the demon, you can play it on curve, and most of the time your opponent is not going to call you on your bluff.
It's interesting, though, because if your opponent doesn't call your bluff, they have to recognize that the chance that you have a demon just go up as turns go on and you draw cards, whether naturally or through life tap or mortal coil or things like that. If your opponent has an opportunity to trade it in, they will, and they'll punish you later. So in many cases, I think it tends to be the correct play to just get it off the board as quickly as possible.
Yeah. All right, so that is a bullet dodge for Nias. You saw him hesitate on that Houndmaster because he recognizes how effective a Hellfire or a Shadow Flame into Demon would be from Purple. Purple has that Shadow Flame, but no Demon. So he can't blow out Nias right here and turn a matchup that is normally unwinnable into like a huge lead on turn 4.
And here, Purple respects the trap. He thinks that trap is most likely Freezing Trap, so he chooses not to attack with his Void Caller. So Nias gets a little bit of a reprieve despite having that weaker Snake Trap in play.
It's the most Snake Trap. It's the most we've seen Snake Trap do so far in this match.
Yeah, he doesn't have Black Knight in this deck also, and Nias actually draws into the second Unleash the Hound. So right now you talked about weaker cards in the matchup, at least earlier on, and Unleash definitely seems to be one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a card that is effective with Hunter's Mark if you do draw them together, but for the most part, it's not going to get damage in through taunted Molten Giants. Handlock is never going to have more than 1 or 2 dudes in play, so you're not summoning that many Hounds. It's really unlucky for Nias to draw the second one in his deck without a single Hunter's Mark.
And here Nias is really debating exactly how he wants to proceed with this turn. He has to be afraid of just the Molten Giant that Purple has in his hand, or possibly multiples that he's afraid that Purple does have. Just going to all of his damage to Purple's face would potentially enable the possibility of multiple large taunt minions coming down.
This is one of those plays that really depends on like the texture of your hand as the Hunter player. If those Unleash the Hounds were quick shots and kill commands, you bet Nias would be going face with everything here and hero powering. Instead, he's going to opt not to attack with Web Spinner, trade in a Mad Scientist, guarantee that he has a Freezing Trap in play. Just play the hand a lot slower than he would if he had some burn.
Yeah, the other problem is that Nias has to recognize that his hand's just pretty bad, and that he may need to just try and get lucky and push through damage to just try and win this game through his opponent maybe just not having a Molten Giant in his hand.
Oh, wow.
That's a good pickup for Nias here.
Yeah, especially in combination with the Unleash the Hound. So, Rainy, you talked earlier about how you think this is a really good matchup for the Hunter. But as the Warlock player, what kind of cards are you looking for in order to turn the matchup in your favor?
Like I mentioned, it's all about those early turns. Void Caller is your best chance at kind of cheesing a game. You need to pay 4 mana for a Mal'Ganis and a 3/4. That's how you win. Purple had most of it, but not all of the pieces. You know, you do need that coin most of the time to do it turn 3. You need the Mal'Ganis, you need the Void Caller. He had all the pieces except for the large demon.
Yeah, this could be a big swing turn. He's able to clear off the biggest threat on the board and throw out one of the biggest threats that he has in his deck. Nias, pretty strong turn.
Savannah Highmane is, I mean, really it was the Hunter's Mark here that let Nias kind of turn it from an unfavorable position, but still, Savannah Highmane, that's the kind of card that actually does beat Handlock. There's no mana-efficient way to deal with it.
Still not really much burn from the hand of Nias. He doesn't have those quick shots, doesn't have those kill commands. Unleash the Hounds can sometimes be burned, but it's a little bit harder to, activate.
Yeah, Purple still has not picked up a demon here, so that Void Caller is not particularly threatening. And wow, he goes down to just 9 life.
Yeah, you see him shake his head. He recognizes how frustrating that is. He's drawn so many cards at this point, close to half his deck. But this does happen once in a while. The Handlock deck does not play a ton of demons like other Void Caller lists. It's not a dedicated demon deck. You really only play Draxus, Mal'Ganis, and one other one, which is usually Doomguard. So this does happen from time to time.
Yeah, so Purple here can't afford to attack with either of his minions because he needs both of them to protect him from the potential of Nias maybe silencing and just attacking through. Unleash the Hounds would give Nias 3. He could play both. He would get 6 guys. Not quite enough to push through damage past these taunts.
He still hasn't checked for the trap yet, has he?
No.
He used both Mortal Coils to clear the board last time. Nias has been the one doing the trading.
Well, there's 2 traps in play then, though.
2 traps in play, yeah. So, well, now he knows both of them. He should know, at least at this stage, after watching Nias' games.
Attention.
Aside from that Hunter's Mark, though, Nias' draws have been pretty weak. Purple knows he doesn't have a demon, but Nias doesn't. He just saw him play 2 Mortal Coils, life tap a lot. He's expecting a demon out of that Void Caller. So we're likely going to see him take out this Sun Fury Protector rather than the Void Caller. And to be fair, he did draw those 2 Unleash the Hounds. He got a pretty weak beast off of Web Spinner. Things have not been going his way, aside from that Hunter's Mark, and Purple could easily turn this around because both players' draws were kind of subpar.
Yeah. Still no demon. Purple draws a Mountain Giant off the top, which is a big threat that is reduced by the large hand size that he does have, but he really wants that demon. He really wants that Mal'Ganis. He really wants that Draxus to really gain more health than he otherwise would by putting up big walls and big taunts.
And right now, Purple doesn't have enough mana to actually play 2 big minions in the same turn, or to play a big minion and taunt them up in the same turn. So here, he may. Is this going to be enough damage? Maybe for. Ooh. So, Unleash and Eaglehorn Bow. I believe this may be enough to push through to actually end things.
I think it is exactly the right amount of damage.
I think it's actually...
Assuming there's no Mal'Ganis.
I think it's 14 if he positions the damage correctly. No, he'll only get 3 counts. So yeah, I think it is exact lethal.
Yeah, so he has
if there's no Mal'Ganis.
The 8-9.
Nice. Feels like it's a risk worth taking. He's going to go for it.
Let's see his face when he sees what team is going to pop out. It is the Void Caller.
There we go.
The rest of the damage goes to face.
He's going to tie it up in a matchup that he absolutely needed to. This is not something you can afford to lose. So this is exactly what Nias is looking to see. Purple, upset about the loss, of course. Can't be happy about it, but not too upset, you know?
And,
this is a matchup you expect to lose.
Yeah.
The emotes come in toward the end there, so both players still having fun with each other. You know, it is a high-stakes match. Definitely a lot of pressure on both of them, but they're still just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, you can see a slight smile crack across Nias' face, and probably a sigh of relief after that one.
Oh, for
Raymond,
sure.
you said going into that one, probably a matchup you expect to win, but he didn't have the best of draws early on. So being able to push through and take that victory in a matchup that, you know, you're sort of expected to win is a good thing.
Yeah, that the Hunter's Mark came at just the right time, was able to take out the big giant that was stopping his offense and allowed him to, despite not having all the best resources, really take that game.
I think Nias might have been the player playing 2 of those. So
Yeah, he was.
a little bit of justice served. You know, I feel like kind of earned that after the weaker draws. But yeah, congratulations to him for tying it up. We're left with Tempo Mage and Handlock versus Handlock and Patron, I believe. So the one interesting thing about Nias' deck, aside from the refreshment vendors in Warlock, is that he actually plays 2 big game Hunter. So he has a massive edge against Purple in that matchup. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, before we jump into that, we actually sat down with Nias to talk about his experiences with Hearthstone so far.
So do you feel like you can see the pattern, sort of, like as things are played, or is that only after a lot of number crunching and research do you sort of see what they're all doing?
I mean, you've got to take a bit of a guess. I think a lot of people assumed that Druid was going to be the class to beat at this tournament, and I didn't want to bring my Druid. I just went for a lineup that I felt was strong against everything that I know a lot of these guys like to play.
Yeah, Nias is one of the players coming in who has the least experience actually playing Hearthstone than any other player. He talked about earlier, he probably has 3,000 games on his account in total, where a lot of these players have, you know, 3,000 plus matches on each individual class.
Yeah, I mean, he has had an incredibly long road getting here. Came through the last call tournament, and you know was an underdog the entire way. But now he's here in the semifinals, and it's tied up between him and Purple.
He's still a great player, and it does give Purple the edge, I feel, in specific matchup. Handlock versus Handlock, even though Nias' deck is built in a way that gives him a slight advantage, I'm sure it's a matchup that Purple has a lot more experience with, and that is one where experience pays off in spades. And we'll see what players queue up, and it is Handlock versus Tempo Mage, which, according to Nias, he loves this matchup.
Yeah, this is a matchup where the Tempo Mage deck really tries to kind of get a reasonable board presence, get some damage in, and then finish off the game with Burn. Some of the more important cards, we actually see one of them in Nias' hand right now, though it's usually not a card you want to keep with Mirror Entity. The fact that the Handlock deck tries to play a lot of big threats quickly can mean that Mirror Entity off of something like a Mad Scientist can really give the Tempo Mage, well, a big tempo advantage.
Absolutely. We saw Purple actually throw back a Hellfire, which in a lot of opening hands that Tempo Mage has, Hellfire is the most important answer on turn 4. There is the Flame Waker, which survives it, but almost every other minion dies to it, even the front half of Piloted Shredder. So I'm surprised to see Purple toss that back.
Hello.
The hellos coming out
God,
from Nias. Yeah, a fun fact about Nias. Nias, when he first started playing Hearthstone, was actually a Freeze Mage only player. And he said when he went over to Tempo Mage, he said, you know what, I never looked back. He likes the deck so much, and that's probably one of the reasons why he considers it to be a favorite against a lot of things that maybe other players wouldn't.
Yeah, it's definitely a deck that's very satisfying to play. The games that you win, you feel like you're in a very dominating position the entire time. So very snowbally for sure.
He's a very good draw here with the Mana Worm in turn 1, the best start, really, for the Tempo Mage deck. It's able to use its spells to buff up that Mana Worm and continue to put pressure on the opponent. And he actually even has great endgame cards as well in his hand with the Toshly that enables Archmage Antonidas with spare parts to generate a bunch of fireballs to close the game.
Yeah, Nias is definitely aware of the fact that Purple can have a Hellfire next turn. He would really love to play Sorcerer's Apprentice, Coin, and Arcane Intellect and just hit him for 1,000,000, but he recognizes the fact that Purple could have that Hellfire. He's going to decide to play it a little bit slower, spend the turn playing Arcane Intellect, not even developing a Scientist. Really, he's just going to let Purple drop a big minion, worry about Hellfire later.
And Mana Worm is one of those tools as a Tempo Mage that sometimes you can use to end the game against Handlock as early as like turn 7, like Kibler mentioned earlier, with some burn. So even though it's a 1-mana card, it can sometimes be a huge threat later in the game, getting to hit in for upwards of 4 or 5 damage.
Purple definitely getting to develop a Mountain Giant on turn 4 at a much higher life total than usual. There's only 2 minions in play for Nias' side. They're not large. And this is a pretty decent spot for Handlock if he had that Hellfire. We'll see if that mulligan decision ends up hurting him. But at this point, Nias just going to go in. He's going to need it next turn. That or a Shadow Flame.
Wow, this is a lot of missiles here. He would be able to clear this off with the Mana Ward if one hits and it doesn't.
Ooh, wow. So none of the missiles or the Flamewaker hits actually hit the Giant, and now Nias he's a little scared here, and he uses his minions to just clear that Giant off the board.
Yeah, it's not a play he wanted to make. Definitely expected to have one more minion in play at this point, but still respecting the AoE potential.
And here, Purple leading with the Ancient Watcher here, which unfortunately for Nias is a big minion, but one that can't attack, that he's now copied.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a very small chance that he gets something off of Unstable Portal that would let him do something with Ancient Watcher. But for the most part, that's kind of the Warlock deck's counter to Mirror Entity.
Or the Rusty Horn from Toshli does get a couple opportunities for that as well.
Let's see a Wailing Soul.
Yeah, that as well from the Unstable Portal.
Not a particularly high value Unstable Portal there, though it does give him a spare part, which could come in handy later on with Archmage Antonidas.
Yeah, so Nias definitely does not want to be putting Purple in Molten Giant range most of the time, but that Flamewaker has other plans. At this point, Purple is so low, Nias will likely just go in and make him have it.
Yeah, I think that from his position here, he does have great tools, even if there is a Molten Giant, to potentially build up burn spells over the next few turns with the Toshli, with the Antonidas, and the spare part, that he can actually close the game out, even if his opponent is able to get a free Giant play.
And Toshli is actually a reasonably statted minion for its cost. It's a 6-mana 5/7, which is actually a pretty good body.
Absolutely. There's a huge difference between 5 and 4 attack in Hearthstone. It completely changes the kind of cards he can kill. He is going to go for it. He's going in.
Wow. Purple pouting. You see actually just a pout in his face. Yeah. He was hoping that he'd play around the Molten Giant because he does not have one in his hand.
There was actually one person in the crowd who, as soon as Nias went face, just started clapping vigorously.
Was his name SM Orc?
Yeah, it was Rexar.
All right, that is a wall of taunt coming down for Purple, though. Let's see if Nias can punch through it.
Yeah, he has 13 health worth of taunts in play. And Nias doesn't actually have any burn spells.
Flamewaker can put in some work if he gets another spell off of this.
So Nias with some good sequencing there. He does decide to attack with his Mad Scientist first, which guarantees he's not going to draw that secret. So he didn't want to cast the Arcane Intellect and then draw the secret that he would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah, that's a big sequencing mechanic to note when you're playing a deck like Mage or like Hunter to trade in or to draw before you draw.
And it looks like he's going to go with the Water Elemental and perhaps just trade in here with the Giant with his... Yeah, he was debating whether he wanted to play that spare part. Looks like he decides to save it for Antonidas.
All right, well, Purple, no Moltens. He does have a Heal Bot, which will protect him from some burn, but he can more or less expect Nias not to have it because he would be dead at this point if Nias did.
Yeah, Fireball plus Ping on Purple's face would have ended the game last turn, but Purple decides to play a little risky, giving Nias the opportunity to possibly draw that Fireball.
That's the advantage of having that information. He decides to not position Void Collar in a way that lets him taunt his Sun Fury Protector as well, though. We'll see if that works out in the end. I feel like he would have liked to have one more taunt.
Yeah, just to protect himself a little bit more from the board. But Purple also has that, the informational advantage. He doesn't have Mal'Ganis, but again, Nias might think that he does, and it might affect his decision-making with these plays. He might not need that extra taunt. He does have some demons, though, Doomguard and Void Caller in the hand if Nias decides to kill the taunted one that's on the board.
And Nias with Toshli here will give him a second spare part, and then a third if it dies, so he's a lot of fuel for that Archmage Antonidas.
He's really hoping for a finicky Cloak Field off of that. That would just almost for sure seal the game. It's a 1 in 7 chance.
And what's armor plating?
And one of the only ways to counter that is to have like a cheap Molten Giant in combination with a Shadow Flame. And sometimes you're just using that to clear off the Archmage Antonidas, which never feels that great because usually they already got a couple Fireballs out of it.
Oh, wow. Sniper right there.
Pretty good hits.
Oh, but there is a Molten Giant, so Purple is going to take advantage of the fact that Nias has been going so heavily to his face.
Purple is out of ways to reduce damage. He has a heal bot, he has a Molten, but he doesn't have anything other than Doomguard that could really affect the board here. Mortal Coil is not going to do much. It's not really going to change what dies. It's a hand that really wants another taunt, another way to just affect the board, maybe like Shadow Flame, Dark Bomb. He could Mortal Coil his own Sun Fury to dig a little bit deeper without having to lose life, but he's going to opt not to.
This does leave him at 15 with the one taunted Void Caller in play, but though it has taken damage, and oof, that's not quite as dangerous as it would have been last turn with that Flame Waker in play. Only 3 random shots. But he did have a good snipe last turn, so...
This also could represent 2 extra fireballs from Archmage Tinnitus because he does have the spare part and Arcane Missile, so next turn you get that guaranteed double burn spell, and that might be enough for him to close out the game. Purple does have some pretty big threats waiting in the wings, though.
From Nias' perspective, when you're playing against a deck like this kind of Warlock, and they have a Void Caller in play with Taunt, you can absolutely understand why he's not playing as all-in as some people might with this information. We know that Purple's hand's weak, but Nias doesn't. He knows that there could easily be a Mal'Ganis that comes down off of this that would just leave me in a horrible position. He's been very careful not to walk into that.
Yeah, now that he draws into some answers, though, he realizes that even if Mal'Ganis comes out, you know, he can afford to take that risk because he does have some cards in his hand like Flame Cannon or Arcane Missiles that might be able to help him deal with the board a little bit better. Also, he's running out of time. Yikes!
And Flame Cannon does 5 damage to the 1 health Sun Fury Protector, and that's a big draw for Purple, too. Defender of Argus will allow him to create a pretty big taunt wall here that's going to prevent a lot of minion damage from Nias to be able to come in and actually hit him in the face.
Purple might be turning this, but we do have 2 fireballs going into the hand of Nias next turn, so Purple's going to need to pick up something like a Loatheb, another heal bot, some way to not die to 2 fireballs.
Yeah. Or look at, you know, putting on enough damage on the board to finish the game, but I don't think that's going to be possible over the course of 2 turns. So he's going to have, what, 3 draws maximum in order to pick up that, and Dark Bomb is not one of them.
That's an important life tap, though, that gets him 1 card deeper towards those answers to keep him alive.
That Dark Bomb is actually...
oh my god, it's going to be 4
potentially
fireballs.
lethal. Oh, yes, Sorcerer Apprentice. Oh, wow.
That's not bad.
But Purple does have lethal damage in combination with
the mirror image gives him taunts.
And, oh yeah, that's true. And also, he'll be able to clear off the Doomguard with the Mana Worm because it'll be buffed to, you know, who knows
so
what.
Many fireballs.
He was just a duplicated Sorcerer's Apprentice away from having almost infinite damage.
One of these images is going to have 3 health, maybe. Oh, no, he's going to make a massive Archmage. Not a bad play either. All right, your move, Purple.
That's Shadow Flame. But the problem is Shadow Flame will clear the board, but Nias has 4 fireballs in his hand.
He's playing Freeze Mage at this point.
He really is.
In his comfort zone.
Yeah. And if he taps, he goes down to 5. Antique Healbot would only bring him back up to 13.
Loatheb's not an out anymore.
Yeah, nothing is an out, I don't think.
I don't think there's a way for Purple to get back into this game after that 4 fireball pickup from Antonites. He doesn't need the 4 of them. Ultimately, Purple's at 7 life. He only needs 1, but the fact that he has so many does reduce any of Purple's possible outs. There's Healbot, but that's not enough.
Now, with Fireball, Ping coming the next turn, that would be enough to end it regardless of the 8 health gain.
And
Purple concedes.
So Nias goes up 2 games to 1 against Purple.
That's a matchup he was comfortable in. He got his win, takes the lead.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Only 1 win away. He just needs to find a win with that Warlock deck in order to advance to the America's Championship final.
Do the funnel cakes have it?
They're chicken legs.
Oh, but he says funnel cakes.
Yeah.
He still says funnel cakes, but...
Blizzard, please.
He just doesn't know what he wants. Carrots, chicken legs, funnel cakes, who knows? Yeah, so Nias going into this one. A little bit of a unique twist on his Warlock deck, as we mentioned earlier. Does have Refreshment Vendors in place of Twilight Drakes. Also, something we didn't mention earlier, he does have double Big Game Hunter.
Right, that's easily his most important card in that matchup, but I still feel I have to give the edge to Purple. Those Refreshment Vendors, while they're a great card in more aggressive matchups, Twilight Drakes do matter in the Handlock Mirror.
Yeah, and of course we talked earlier about how Purple was instrumental in Firebat's World Championship run last year. But who is helping Purple along the way this time?
Bonjour Game aux Origines, bienvenue à
en Californie. J'espère faire une bonne performance pour vous et on se retrouve en stream lundi prochain.
Of course, Gamers Origin, the new team that Purple joined, it is a French organization. Purple is bilingual. He did learn French as his first language growing up in France. So pretty cool to see.
I'm glad we had subtitles for that because I had no idea what he was saying.
Yeah. And of course, this is another USA versus Canada matchup. Of course, Nias representing the USA and Purple representing Canada. Make sure you tweeted us your predictions, who you think is going to win, which country you are rooting for in North America. You can tweet with the hashtag USAWin or with the hashtag CanWin. Make sure you tweet at Play Hearthstone and let us know what you're thinking. Join in on those conversations. And we'll 4 minutes away from jumping into the next match, or the next game of the match. Once again, Nias is 1 game away from securing his spot in that finals.
Yeah, he's got to be feeling good. You know, he's come a long way to make it here. And he's still up against a tough opponent. Purple does have 2 strong decks remaining that, I mean, we even saw Purple, we were talking about the Big Game Hunters in Nias' deck. Purple's playing Big Game Hunter in his Patron deck. So as far as having the tools to potentially deal with what Nias can come up with, Purple has a few tricks up his sleeve as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the last game win was absolutely important for Nias, in big part because of this. He guarantees getting to play his handlock against Grim Patron, which is a very favorable matchup, one of the few decks that's actually significantly favored against this type of warrior. Purple has kind of hedged his bets here. He does have that Big Game Hunter, like you mentioned, which is going to help him deal with a quick Mountain Giant from Nias, but it does depend whether he draws it on time.
Right, absolutely. And this is actually another matchup. You mentioned that the Refreshment Vendors are excellent against aggressive decks, but against the Patron deck, the role of the Handlock deck is frequently trying to pressure your opponent. The fact that Refreshment Vendor is not a good pressure card compared to Twilight Drake in this matchup could come back to haunt him.
Yeah, it's not so much about dealing damage with the handlock. It's more like the lack of health on the vendor means that it's going to be a lot easier to deal with. The second half of Deathbite is going to take that minion out. Nias' win condition, it's going to be to develop minions early, but not so much to pressure his opponent, but mostly to try to set up 3 taunts. Once you do that.
Oh, speaking of Big Game Hunter on time, there it is in his opening hand.
Yeah, so usually Patron Warriors have to use like multiple weapon swings to deal with the first Giant as a threat, and that puts them on, a shorter clock to find the tools to win the game. So having that Big Game Hunter, definitely going to be a huge resource.
And both these players have been doing their research this tournament. Nias knows that there's a Big Game Hunter in Purple's Warrior deck. He might choose to play that Void Caller before the Mountain Giant, just in case.
Yeah, Purple has a pretty good opening hand here. Not only with the Big Game Hunter, but he also has that Acolyte of Pain, which in combination with this Unstable Ghoul will be able to help dig him to some of his combo cards or his answers to Nias' threats.
Absolutely. I mean, a Hellfire here would deny Purple 1 card draw in the long run. Is that worth taking a turn away from developing big minions? I think because he has kind of 3 that he'd like to play from his hand, he would rather play a minion, but Hellfire is close.
Using his Hellfire there also sort of disrespects the possibility of Purple using his resources to create a Grim Patron board. One of the reasons that the Handlock deck typically does do well against Grim Patron is those board clears that makes the Patron board flood plan of the deck much less effective.
Yeah, that's a type of plan that more inexperienced Patron players often go for, but somebody like Purple, I think he recognizes that, okay, if I happen to incidentally make some Patrons, I'm going to do it to get a big Battle Rage. I'm not going to do it to try to kill my opponent. So Nias knows the way that Purple will play because of his level of experience, and he's probably not going to expect Purple to go for a bunch of Patrons.
Yeah, the main win condition, of course, for Patron in this matchup is getting those big Frothing Berserker turns. But the key is going to be Emperor Thorson. A lot of times, getting through a wall plus lethal damage in the same turn is not possible without Emperor Thorson. So that's a key card that we're going to have to look for in Purple's future turns, of course.
Purple here just putting the pressure on. He's just coining out his Dread Corsair as a 3/3, just sending his damage to the face. And, Nias is down to 15 here. Purple isn't comboing per se, but, oh, and there's Emperor Thorson. Speaking of combos.
That's maybe the best card Purple could have drawn there. This is such an unusual way for the game to play out. Purple, because of that Big Game Hunter, because of Gnomish, because of Dread Corsair, these cards that you don't always see in the matchup, he just has this board lead early.
Yeah, the reason why that's a key card is because Emperor Thorsan, when reducing 1-cost cards like Whirlwind, like Execute, you're reducing the card cost by 100%, where a lot of other classes or cards don't have that benefit. a Death Bite going from 4 to 3 is definitely not as impactful as an Execute going from 1 mana to being it free to use. So one of the reasons why Emperor Thorson so strong in Patron Warrior.
And Nias with the Owl to at least reduce the impact of Emperor here. It's going to just be a 5/5 body from now on, but it did still get a reduction on several of those cards.
I mean, this is the power of Lotheb, though. Almost any deck that plays a Lotheb against Grim Patron is so effective. Lotheb, of course, making all enemy spells just be so expensive in the next turn. Came out in next Rammus. It's just been a huge force in Constructed since.
Yeah, it's never really gone out of the meta in a lot of decks that rely on either being super defensive at certain points of the game or setting up for big combos later in the game, like, say, Druid.
Yeah, Purple really wanted to leverage that board lead to use this turn to get a big Battle Rage. That's the primary win condition. The Frothing Berserkers are what kill Nias, but Battle Rage is the card that wins you the game oftentimes against Handlock. And because of that Lotheb, you just can't do that play.
Still needs a Warsong Commander, though, Purple does, in order to give that Frothing Berserker charge if he wants to make some big damage turns. Because right now he does have some cycle with the Slam, with the Battle Rage. He does have that key component that he needs to push through damage with the Frothing Berserker and the Execute, but he doesn't have a way to sort of activate it all with the Warsong Commander.
And you can just see the level of understanding and respect from both players in this matchup. Purple could probably have killed Nias at this point, but he's really respecting the possibility of Molten Giant with taunts. He's choosing to use that 5-attack minion to kill off a small one rather than put Nias at 10. And it's definitely a good play. Most of the time, the Warlock would have the Molten Giant.
And here, Purple is still missing the key component of the combo here with the Warsong Commander. He's going to, it looks like, just try to set up a Battle Rage here, get the Death Rattle of the Death Bite to give him some damage on that Armor Smith to just draw an extra card.
He would definitely prefer to draw more than 2 cards, but at this point, Purple recognizes I'm starting to fall behind. I need to get something going. He's going to be very happy to see no Demon from Nias.
Yeah, he's going to be able to cycle a little more. There's that Warsong Commander, and Nias once again throws out the well played. He's just really scared of what cards are still waiting in Purple's hand that have been reduced by the Emperor Thorson.
Now, if that Slam is going to let him deal with that Watcher without having to use Execute, Purple's going to be very happy about that.
And that Whirlwind is a big draw here. It will help him enable the Frothing Berserker Warsong Commander potentially in a future turn to close things out. There's Refreshment Vendor.
That's a lot of points of heal, actually. The 4 from the Refreshment Vendor plus the 8 from the Anti-Heal Bod. He could go up to 27 health if he wanted to here.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a little bit stronger than Twilight Drake in this situation. You're pretty low. You don't have that many cards in hand. I'd rather have a Vendor.
Does just play, debating Life Tap, perhaps?
Yeah, I think if you're going to heal bot here, that's a reasonable play to make. I would even Mortal Coil his own Defender of Argus at this point, because as the Warlock, as the deck playing against Patron, no matter what class, you don't want to have that many minions in play. The fewer you have, the less bonus the Frothing Berserker is going to get off of those Whirlwind effects, just the less damage you're going to take.
It's also just an opportunity for him to use his mana very efficiently.
That's right.
He has that 1 mana left over. He's able to remove his minion, potentially reduce the potential incoming damage of that Frothing Berserker, and draw himself an extra card to dig himself to some of the more important cards he needs later on.
And a 2-1 at the end of the day is not going to really be that impactful in winning the game. A lot of times you win by running the Patron Warrior out of resources. Wow.
Second Frothing Berserker.
He actually does have a Whirlwind effect, so he can, or he just have a Fiery Works equipped in general. So next turn, we're going to be looking at a lot of damage just from hand on the side of Purple.
Every single minion represents +2 damage off of that Whirlwind, so at this point, Purple's doing the math. Do I kill this Ancient Watcher now? Is it better if it's in play to give me that extra buff off of Whirlwind next turn? He recognizes that if he attacks now, he can attack again next turn for 3 damage. It's a lot of things going through Purple's mind right now. The cards he could draw. It's definitely not an easy play, even though ultimately not a huge consequence.
Ooh,
yeah.
There's Mal'Ganis. Purple does have the Execute in his hand, so Mal'Ganis will not be able to, by itself, stave off death for Nias. And it might actually, playing Mal'Ganis may actually get him killed.
Yeah, I think actually Mal'Ganis would get him killed. The Inner Rage alone, you said Whirlwind represents damage for every character on the board. He's going to have the Mortal Coil, one of his own creatures, I believe, here. But even then, I don't think it's going to be enough because Inner Rage alone represents double Execute.
The second Execute.
That's got to be it.
Yeah, this has got to be it. The 2 Frothing Berserkers come down. The Whirlwind buffs each of them for 7. And then he has Inner Rage, Executes, and the weapon. This is just going to be game over.
Yeah, that second Frothing Berserker is such a key draw for Purple. It went from a position where he was very behind into a position where there are very few cards that would stop Nias from dying next turn.
Right.
And that's just the power of getting 2 of those Berserkers. It's just such an effective card when you draw them in multiples.
Yeah, and with that last Inner Rage, Purple is going to take the victory and bring it to a Game 5.
That's a win he needed. That was his hardest matchup. He got through it, and now it's anyone's game.
Yeah, we're going down to the Warlock Mirror match for the final game to see who will be moving on to the Americas Championship Finals here.
Yeah, Nias has been very vocal about that handlock mirror, saying he thinks his refreshment vendor plus double BGH combo gives him an advantage. He practices it a lot. He's really confident in it. We'll have to see. Purple looks like he's pretty confident in anything right now.
Gotta be feeling good after that game. He managed to pull out a win in one of the tougher matchups for his deck, and you know, he is now, rather than being down 2-1, he's 1 game away from moving to the finals.
Yeah, both players in that same spot, and it's a little bit of a tough situation for both players going into this matchup because they're both so confident, but they also have spent enough time with each other to know that the other one thinks that the matchup is favored. So it's an interesting dynamic.
We did see Nias win the Handlock Mirror yesterday against VLPS. He maneuvered it very, very well, and I have to imagine that he, with those double BGH, does feel like he has at least the edge from a deck construction perspective. But as Raynad was saying, Purple has a lot of experience.
Purple has a big game hunter too. Well, let's just see what happens. Move.
Yeah, and Nias comes in with a lot of confidence, but he was a little bit intimidated by the sheer amount more games that his opponents had played from him.
Did you talk to any of the other pro players and get a sense for how much time they spend on things?
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of them stream a lot, and I can't put 8 to 10 hours into it each day. But I didn't want to say anything, but they were talking about how many games they had on each class, and I think VLPS said he had 10,000 games on Warrior alone. I think I've got like 3,000 games on my account total.
And another fun fact from Nias, he actually did bring Hunter to this tournament, and he told me beforehand that his Hunter is actually only level 40. So he doesn't have many games played on that. He said he was grinding games before to try and learn the deck as quick as possible. He said it's not as easy as some people make it look.
Yeah, the very first Hearthstone tournament I ever played, I had to level to 10 the morning of the event to get Kill Command.
Yeah.
It's an important card.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, moving into this matchup, it is going to be Handlock versus Handlock. Game number 5 of the first semifinal of
Game
the day.
5!
The Innkeeper's excited. The crowd's excited. You guys at home, I have to imagine that you are excited. I know I am.
Yeah. We're here at the Folsom Foundry in San Francisco. We have a great crowd who's ready
There it is.
to watch. A big thank you to everyone who's here in the audience and everyone tuning in at home. It's been a fantastic weekend of games, and I'm excited because after this game, we will have our first America's Championship finalist, Nias versus Purple.
Absolutely. So what Nias gains from the second big game hunter in this matchup, he kind of loses in the refreshment vendor versus Twilight Drake. That life gain is not particularly important in this matchup. Sometimes you can do some crazy stuff with it. You do heal both players. You can stop them from playing a Molten Giant, maybe. But I think I would rather have Twilight Drake most of the time.
Yeah, for this matchup, I definitely agree with you. The more impactful minion, though it is worth noting that the fact that Twilight Drake is vulnerable to Ironbeak Owl, particularly in the later stages of the game, does mean that it has a little bit more risk in terms of the range of things that can actually move from the board.
Absolutely. Going first here is a huge advantage for Purple in the matchup. He's going to be able to develop 2 Giants back-to-back. And the first one might get big game hunted. The second one seems like it'll stick so far.
Yeah. So break it down for me, Kibler. What are you looking for in the Handlock versus Handlock mirror? Or better yet, what are you trying to hold on to?
I'm not actually particularly well-versed in the Handlock mirror. I imagine Raynad maybe
Let's ask Raynad. Raynad,
that big game hunter, that's one of them, though. That
Yes.
I know.
That card's pretty good, yeah. The Handlock versus Handlock mirror, it's definitely my favorite matchup in Hearthstone. A lot of intricate decisions to make, a lot of small ways to get an edge. And Purple's hand does kind of play itself out when you get the double Mountain Giant draw going first. It's exactly what you want. It's very aggressive. You get to get on the board before your opponent. But Big Game Hunter really changes the math and what a normal draw looks like. That 4-2, it's not going to die to Mortal Coil. It's going to allow Nias to deal with the Giant kind of in a fair way, which most of the time you can't do.
And also the body, along with the Voidwalker, if he did pick up, say, a Mortal Coil here, he'd be able to trade with this Giant and then get the Voidcaller minion on the board as well. But it looks like he's not going to be able to do that. He's going to have to use the Dark Bomb from his hand. So expending a resource here, but does get the Doomguard down.
Absolutely. So he's going to let him get his Demon into play. Nias definitely had the option there to just let the 8-8 live. A lot of times you do want to deal damage to the opponent, but that does activate their Molten Giants. So it's not certain that Purple would have even attacked face.
It's worth noting that Nias didn't even attack with his Doomguard.
Yeah,
Doomguard came out with charge, and he chose to just let it sit there. He's just using it to attack minions, and there reveals the Lord Jaraxxus off of the Voidcaller.
In this matchup, in the mirror matchup, is it better to have your Jaraxxus be put out onto the field for that big body? Or is it really crucial to have later in the game to actually play and turn into Jaraxxus to get that weapon and those Infernals?
Most people would tell you the Infernals. I'm personally of the opinion that having it on board is much better. It's a very strange, convoluted game that comes down to Jaraxxus Infernals. In my experience, it happens very rarely. At least with the way I play Handlock. But that's the beauty of the deck, is there's so many ways you can play this matchup that it really is different for everybody. Some people play in a way where Jaraxxus is the plan. So I don't mind having a 4-11 out on turn 7.
Looks pretty good right here.
Yeah. But yeah, nice strategy of not attacking ever, really, is something we saw in the last Handlock mirror he played, and he did win with it. But it definitely made the matchup come down to the wire, even though he got a big lead because of his big game hunters. So whether that helped him or hurt him, it's really hard to say still. We'd have to see it in action again, and we'll see how it does for him.
And I have to mention that particular strategy of trying to play for fatigue. It is actually quite important that Jaraxxus hit the board rather than was in Purple's hand to give him a battle cry of becoming Jaraxxus.
Absolutely.
And Purple takes a pretty commanding lead on the board, but that's not necessarily the best case if you're playing the
No one's attacking.
Yeah, he could have attacked a Defender of Arcs. He's like, you know what? This nice guy knows what he's doing. I'm gonna not attack.
This is just a truce here, a ceasefire. You know, Gul'dan doesn't want to hurt himself.
The match of pacifists.
Yeah. A wise man once told me, though, if both players are doing the exact same thing, at the end of the day, one of them is going to be wrong.
That's a good point.
What if they're both attacking face? How can they both be wrong attacking face when face is the place?
Wow,
It is the place, TJ.
Deep.
That's just science.
Very deep.
Shields up.
Jaraxxus doing some work on the board, but he's reaching the end of his days.
Drake is going to be key because right now Nice does not have the Iron Beak Owl to deal with it. That's going to be a full value Drake.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So what are you looking for now if you're Nias?
Oh, that
moving
card.
forward.
That's a good one.
I'd say so. Being
We
able to
keep
deal
saying
with that
that. As
Drake.
soon as you ask, what are you looking for? It's like that. The thing
Yeah.
you just played.
Yeah,
That one.
that's
what I want.
Maybe that.
It is worth pointing out, though, Nice doesn't have a Hellfire or Shadow Flame, doesn't have like a Mortal Coil here, nothing to really deal with the 4-1. And 4-1 is still a pretty strong stat line. That's going to be able to trade up into most things. Now look at the amount of burst in Purple's hand. Wow.
Actually, well, Lothep's being played, which is good because I think with the Iron Beak Owl, double Dark Bomb Hellfire would have been lethal from Purple.
Or he also has a Doomguard in his hand as well.
Oh, and a Doomguard, yeah. So a lot of options
If
there.
he had not Lotheb or gained life there, the game was over. And Purple, again, with the commanding board lead here, Emperor reducing a huge number of cards in his hand. And I have to imagine that we'll see a bit of trading here as Purple doesn't want to give Nias the ability to potentially play something like Shadow Flame off of that Lotheb.
I would absolutely rather be in Purple's position at this point. He has a commanding lead. He's got that Emperor Thorson, which uncontested does decide a lot of handlock mirrors. It's going to give him a very large edge, and mostly that burst. I mean, we saw back before Goblins versus Gnomes even, when handlock was a very popular deck, you'd see a lot of mirrors. That was key. Who had burst, basically? We saw Leroy combo. That's what decided games.
And here, the cost reduction on all those burst cards from Emperor Thorson dramatically increases the amount of damage that Purple is capable of doing in a single turn.
Yeah.
He can play all three of Dark Bomb, Hellfire, Doomguard.
And Iron Beak Owl on one of his ancient launchers
it's
for
so much
additional
damage.
4 damage.
Let's see if that 14-point burst is enough. I don't see a way of getting that Emperor Thorson off of the table.
Yeah, Nias picks up his own Emperor Thorson, but that's not going to really do very much. He could potentially play Healbot here, but I mean, how scared can you realistically be about dying to that much burst? It requires basically all of the damage cards in Purple's deck to be in his hand right now.
You certainly don't expect 14 points from a deck with 1 charge minion.
And their Emperor Thorson, and I believe that is going to be it.
Yeah, with Dark Bomb, Hellfire, Iron Beak Owl on the Ancient Watcher. He even has the Doom Guard for good measure. I think Nias is going to realize he throws out the well played. Purple knows exactly what he's doing, and I think with that, Purple is going to be the first finalist here at the Americas Championship.
Yeah, congratulations to Purple. 1 step away from being the Americas champion. Congratulations to him.
And we see the handshake there. Nias, a little deflated, but you know, he's got to be happy about how far he came in this event.
Yeah, there's your winner. Purple, representing Canada and Gamers Origin, coming down the stairs. Really well played by him. I think a lot of people had him as one of the favorites to win the whole thing coming into this.
He was definitely one of the most experienced players in this field, and that experience clearly paying off here as he is moving on to be the very first finalist in the Americas Championship.
Yeah, we do have to give a nod to Nias, though, coming in as the underdog, an unknown player, making it all the way to the semifinals. Really fantastic performance by him. He brought in some fresh cards, some innovative decks, and it paid off up to this point. We also will see him at the World Championship at BlizzCon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we do want to give a big shout out to the people that make this happen. Our sponsors, the Amazon App Store, as well as Totino's. A big congratulations to Purple, but we do have one more semifinal plus the final coming up after this quick break.